was during the winter. There was the summer program. Tim McMullen and his wife did that. There wasn't. So his mothers got together.
All your mothers?
You were mothers. Daddies were all working.
I got one.
I've got some of the cutest pictures when they were really little. First events. Michelle,
What do you say, Art?
You don't have mints, but I can
cough drops.
vitamin C drinks.
How are you?
Just fine.
Oh, you look good.
Any more lies we
You
wrote?
got a top button, sure my gun is ready for spring.
Be careful, Tom. He's our control.
We have a quorum? Yeah. We have a quorum and a full board.
This is the new budget.
No, that's the agenda.
I've got
I
this.
had like three
Does
of them.
anybody else see it today?
This is the new budget. You can just put up the money. That's all it says.
You'll see by the numbers, though.
I'm going to call the meeting to order.
Oh,
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and I have a motion to approve the agenda.
We'll move.
second.
Any other changes?
You know that?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Public comments. Joe?
Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. At the previous meeting, I questioned whether or not Mr. Corwell should have made public comments about golf. And the premise was that at special board meetings, only topics on the agenda should be open for public comments. And it was essentially told. However, I would like to read from Board Resolution BO2. Decorum occurs. Public comments. Decorum.
What is it, Joe? What resolution?
BO2.
BO2.
Simple sentence. At a special meeting of the board, comments shall be limited to items on the agenda for that meeting. Shall, not listed or anything else, shall be limited. Rest my case.
May I, just as a point of order,
Yes.
since our resolutions are trumped by Maryland law, during a meeting in which the agenda is limited to a specific topic, or at a special meeting, the lot owner's comments may be limited to the topics listed on the meeting agenda.
I think you're misinterpreting.
Well,
I think you misinterpreted.
let's not have a legal.
Yeah, right.
Do I have to call up Joe Moore?
Yeah,
for
put it up on the forum,
This
for
is
God's
not the
sake.
foot. All right.
You'll-
Okay, no,
I'd like
Joe,
to
you're
address
done.
that.
You're
I'm
done.
going to
Joe.
address
I
that.
think you
No.
need to be respecting.
I'm going to address
Sorry.
that because if you read that further, it says that the meetings, the comments shall be limited to what's on the agenda.
Joe, I think
But once a year,
Joe.
must be held a meeting, which is everything.
Joe.
That's correct.
the
Yeah,
chair
no,
has already ruled that, in fact, that subject is false. Okay.
But not
Any other public comments?
No one's, they're all afraid to. Are you kidding?
Yeah, God forbid.
God forbid.
All right, we'll move on to media questions.
Meteors.
Oh, there's Josh.
Can you discuss anything from the closed session?
No. Your questions are usually not that easy, Judge. All right. Now we're going to move on to the goal of this meeting is to approve a 2015-2016 OPA budget. What we have is, right now, we have gone through the budget and approved anytime, actually. And come to general agreement on a number of issues. And I'd like to, at least cast those in concrete and say, yeah, that's true. We talked about 5 new capital improvement or additions, totaling $175,000, and I'm not going to fire bit the rest of that. A $10,000 increase in the marina income, a budgeted increase in the golf course of $37,076, bringing the budgeted loss to golf to $50,000. Eliminating the trolley, $5,000, and reducing the proposed payroll increase by $150,000. And I believe that our latest submission for Mark contains implemented all of those.
I did have one correction, Mr. Stevens.
Yep.
Third bulleted item, it said 3776, North Highland Bank, for last, it's actually 35,876.
35,000. All right. Yeah, that was 14,000. I sent out to the board members, and I have copies if you want it. I'm kind of working off this paper, and that's really all it is. In addition, I should go on. I sent out to the board members a synopsis of where I thought were and where the major points of disagreement are. And I don't know whether does everybody have that or anybody have it. At any rate,
Do you have an extra copy?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
There's 2 pages here, and they're collated.
Anybody else?
And I'm going to be reading off that paper. I'm using it just as a reference, not
Is
as
it
a
the same one? Didn't
proposal.
change, right?
No, it didn't change. Same one. Wait a second, Marty. I don't think so. I don't think it changed. I won't swear to it. Well, I've done a lot of back and forth.
It's coming around.
Yeah. To summarize the status right now, we have what we call the Plan B that Ted and Tom worked together to put together. And
Tom, Pat, you need it.
I need a page one.
and
I
I
must
think
give you both pages because I'm not
the
seeing any changes.
yeah, just to summarize really quickly, some of the things in that Plan B, to change the name of the 5-year plan for Legacy. The $130 contribution was was used to fund capital additions under operations at $175,000.
Which is the top bullet.
Yeah, which is the top bullet, and you know what the fire pit. And to bring down the legacy paper deficit, $923,760. It also proposed transferring funds from the historical reserve to zero out the debt, future roads and golf drainage reserves, $776,000. And it intends that the 135 collection continues until the legacy deficit, sometimes referred to as the yacht club deficit, is zero. It suggests this deficit is payoff of the yacht club course. That's what it says. Future reserves remains in place to be funded in the future by the CIP, by record,
Based on
requirements.
CIP.
Based on the CIP, not funded by the CIP.
We make some corrections on this.
Sure. No, I'm trying to get the general sense, but why don't we get them in while they're at? 'Cause,
Right. above reserves there, it says 100,000. Proposed increase, that should be 6124.
Well, where are you?
Where are you now?
Let's drop down to C.
Let's see, right on, we skipped that one line item, and I just want to make sure the number's right. We read down budget operations, and we made one correction in the third budget, 35,876 from 37,876.
Exactly.
Read the next two. Then Plan C proposes a loss increase of 100. That actually should read 60 or 120. Just so everybody's looking at accurate numbers.
Okay, well,
We had skipped that, so I just want to make sure that correct.
yeah, and that was sort of a forward note, Plan C
Gotcha.
being down here. And basically, but, we can certainly discuss that. Basically, there's been a proposal that raising the golf course $50,000 was in that, and at a closer budget, and I've got two of them. One would be to increase it to, what it would come out to be, it's 114,000.
And that's why 60.
And that can be discussed. I'll put up a motion, or we can make it around $100,000. And there's no reason to tie it back to the other projection. I mean, it's just a number.
And then in Plan B, third bullet item, 776,000. It's actually 776,692. And we went over these in detail.
776.
692.
692.
And then the 135.
Yeah.
Is actually 130.
That's what I
130.
thought.
Yeah, correct.
Just trying to, since we
No,
went
no,
through,
no.
trying to make
Let's
sure it's
just
correct.
get it. We have. Yeah, good. It's important that we be on the same page. Okay. Now, I put out what I tried to do. I said, well, what I could not get a real handle is throwing these numbers, kind of back and forth. I'm talking about particularly in the reserve. Well, this. So I tried to go through it step by step, and starting with another assumption. But before I get into that, go down it step by step. There's a few things that I'd like to do. One is, and I'd just like to see that we all have agreement, and without opposition, I'll just propose it, go around the table, get a show of hands, and without going through the formal resolution and everything like that. I think that's how we generally do
In
these
budget discussions, that's how it's done.
Yeah. So, okay, the first one is kind of simple, I think. I would propose that we decide that golf course, budgeted golf course, hopefully not the real one, be $100,000.
But up front, we had 50,000.
We had 50,000.
That's what we agreed. And could you tell me why you suggest that?
Well, I think there's some board members who feel that not comfortable with that. Not after the losses that we've had over the last 5 years. They would prefer to have a mistake on that side rather than have yet another shortfall that didn't meet the budget.
And the assessment increased from the 50 to the 100 or 114, 124? I don't know which number you're looking at.
I'm suggesting 100,000, so it'd be a round number.
Well, then it says the main difference is to increase the golf deficit by 100 to 114, 124. Your first line, budget operations. So I'm not understanding what you mean.
Let me help with that. The original budget number was a $14,000 124 loss. What you wrote here was $100,000 being added to that, which makes it 114.
124.
You've now suggested it's 100 to
So
round it to
when
100.
you're saying 114, not 100,000 total.
No, I'm saying, now I'm proposing that it be 100,000 total. I don't mind if we do 114 either, I don't care.
That's a $6.
Saving.
If you did.
The only issue that, and I'm one of them that wanted to raise it from 14 to 50, so because I wasn't sure the 14 was a good number either. But there is a number out there budgetarily that does concern me, and it has to do with the $200,000 decrease that is being proposed. We're not through contractually yet, I understand that. But in the pro forma that Landscapes Unlimited gave us, they are lowering the maintenance by $200,000. That concerns me to maintain the course. So if in the process of doing these negotiations, we go back and say, no, you can't, I'm speculating now, that if we go back and say you can't lower the maintenance by $200,000, we want this course to be maintained, then this 100 becomes 300. So I'm uncomfortable with that without us recognizing that $200,000 decrease that's in the proposed performance. We haven't agreed to it yet.
I understand.
But in the midst of agreeing or disagreeing with that, it could affect this number. So that, I mean, I'm the one who said make it 50, make it 100. That's the reason that I think it's worth.
Well, the survey stuff right now, to the best of my knowledge, unless I missed something, it's really up to the 3-man team.
That's why I'm making it, letting you know about it.
I mean, I didn't-
That's why I'm bringing it up.
We're going to have to get some specific feedback as to why or what that $200,000.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we had a letter, as I recall, I don't have it with me, from Mattingly saying, we asked him about the numbers, and he said he would be more comfortable with 70,000, not 50.
I didn't get that letter.
I didn't see it either.
I didn't even.
Where are you?
Now, Pat, I think that might have been in
What was that?
food and beverage. I think that had to do with
Oh,
turnaround.
was it food and beverage?
It's
Oh,
food
I
and
thought-
beverage,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
and I got,
I thought that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, just to make it clear, we
no, he's right, excuse me, you are right, the last paragraph. He is right.
It involved food.
It involves food and beverage, yes, you're right.
It is. But he thought he should range it to 70K. That's right.
It has to do with not having a manager for food and beverage.
Right.
They thought
That's why they want to move the 50 to 70, because they want a food and beverage.
But
So I thought we would lower it from
even
100
that
down to
70 still has the minus 200 in it
Yeah.
for maintenance.
I believe that's strictly food on the food and beverage budget. That has no maintenance. I mean, read that.
Well, let's read that carefully then.
All right, then my question is to the team. When I got asked the question earlier, because we were looking at another company, the response, how did it affect our budget? And Dave said several occasions, they will have to live with the budget that we have passed. Are we now modifying the budget to reflect the pro forma that was given to us from Landscape?
Yeah.
well,
Where is it? I haven't seen it.
Oh,
Are we still staying with the numbers that we had from
we are
Casper on
going
the
to
budget?
give we are going to give them a budget. But in reference to my earlier statement, it was perfectly likely that we might not have even selected a contractor and already have the budget done. In that case, the contract would have had. Now, since we have this opportunity, very small window of opportunity, we did what I thought was common sense thing is to ask Landscapes whether or not this is something you can live with. It's just another check before we get into.
But we haven't modified our budget, am I correct,
No.
to reflect what Landscapes has said? So this $200,000 less on maintenance of the golf course is not reflected in our budget.
Well, we are not modifying. What we did was send a budget to Landscape and say whether or not they can live with this
Right,
budget.
and that's what you said you were going to do.
And I did it. And basically, now,
No, you don't.
wait a second. We will do everything to live within the current NOI bottom line budget performance of minus $50,000. Sure, we feel a more conservative target, but again, $50,000 is not unreasonable. $70,000 is more conservative, and we're saying what I'm proposing here is $100,000, or 100, or 114 if you want to. I mean, so I just want to get an agreement to give Ord a number and say what the loss is. I mean, does everybody agree?
realistic.
A realistic number, yeah. And, I think the best we can do with it, in round numbers, is $100,000. If you want 114, that's, not going to make that much of a difference. So, I mean, can I make a motion that we do at 100,000? Can everybody buy
Second.
Second.
that? Third, nobody? Anybody else? Tom, no?
I'm a no.
Can you suggest something? You
No,
have
no, I didn't know we were doing votes.
Okay.
No, fine.
Yeah, okay,
I
100,000.
just wanted to make sure the board
I
was
don't
aware
know.
of the 200,000 issue, that
Right.
it's gonna have to be
In a
worked through.
performa.
It's gonna have to be worked
As
through.
I understand it, Tom,
Casper, it-
correct me, don't we have $200,000 in the budget?
No,
Do not have.
they took 200, their pro forma spends $200,000 less on maintenance than we did this previous year.
Well, one of the things that we suffer from, we don't know. They've said they're going to live with 70,000.
That's what
We're
they said.
giving them 100,000, and that's the bottom line of everything we do right now. We can't. Now we are going to go into those.
Agreed.
And we're gonna get there in excruciating.
It was a
Okay.
rather large number that I wanted to make sure the board was aware
So
of. when we were facing.
So we're in agreement. Take that
All right, so there has been a vote at 100?
100. Yeah.
Okay, you have me as no on
And,
that?
and as no, we're not. I mean, we're doing these are budget discussions,
Okay.
and so I'm trying to get a sense of what the board wants. If it's 4-3, then the 4 will win. I mean, so
Gee.
Imagine that.
okay. Let me
Dave, let me bring
Go ahead.
in. Pat, you want to go first? You want me to go
No,
first?
you go ahead.
One of us
You're
will go
looking
first.
it
I
up.
mean, we were talking earlier today that the reality is Plan B, as it was crafted by Pat and I, was sent out to the entire board to look at.
yes.
All but one responded positively to Plan B, and the only thing that hadn't been resolved in Plan B was the number you just resolved, was what was the losses that were going to be established for golf. So what else is there? If everybody else already lined up with Plan B as being a reasonable compromise
Well,
as to where we were going, which is what the email said, I frankly don't want to, I mean,
well,
Back-
give Pat a chance to weigh in here.
Good,
because
good.
We
Pat-
worked out, we hammered it out.
well, fine.
There are
But
objections.
I have an objection. You know, what I don't think it is necessary to increase the dues, the assessment, to the members. Not one penny. We're going to have to learn to live within budgets.
Then
Not
why
one
did you
penny.
agree with Plan B? Because it didn't. It increased the dues.
It increased it by $6.
Right.
And I say no.
You
I do
said
not.
yes.
I say
Did you
no.
just
I do
agree
not
to
agree.
increase the
You
golf
just
to
agree.
100,000?
I do not agree with a $6 increase in assessment.
Well, can we go down these?
It's more than that.
I believe
Some stuff.
there have been
Well,
sufficient.
let Pat have a say. Okay.
Well, go ahead.
Well, yeah, well, my say is, I know what Jack says, and he's doing his Tea Party best. I hate to say that.
Oh, will you stop?
Come
Oh,
on.
that's ridiculous.
There-
I find that
it is
insulting, and I
ridiculous.
find that
You have to have
ridiculous.
budget increases. You have inflation.
I find that
There's
ridiculous.
no inflation issue, Pat.
There isn't. Pat, okay, just make your comments.
By the way, I totally agree with what my fellow board member just said. That's because the tax and spending mindset's got to
Okay,
cease.
if we could go through this, okay, there
Here we
are
go.
sufficient objections in detail. Plan B doesn't cover everything. I think the operations were covered. I think the reserves were in fact, and how we treat the reserves were a different story. And
It was very
those are
clear.
all of the. Well,
There's nothing ambiguity, and there was no ambiguity in Plan B as to what we were doing. We were taking the historical reserve funds and zeroing out 3 deficits. We were going to maintain the $130, which was euphemistically known as the 5-year plan, until the yacht club is paid off, which is what Plan B said. And
Well-
you can argue that it's not paid off. The reality is the personal commitment to our membership was that that's where the money for the yacht club was going to come from. And what isn't covered? in
well,
the
I'm going
reserve?
to suggest that we go through and
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Warren.
I just want to repeat what I said to Tom when I answered this Plan B. The yacht club is paid. We had a $4.3 million referendum. We have collected $4.3 million. All you have to do is open this book, back to reserves, and add across the line. Guess what it comes up to? It comes up to $4,391,314. We're not paying off the yacht club. We're paying off greens unbudgeted. We're paying off other things, but we're not paying off the yacht club.
Actually, the money to pay for the yacht club came from the historical reserve fund, which is what we said it was going to come from. And this is like the person who has money in a savings account, and they go out to buy a new car, and they say to themselves, I'm going to promise myself that I will put the money back when I've used the money out of the savings account. That's exactly what we've done here.
No.
The money came out of in order to pay for it, we didn't print it.
No, I
The
agree
checks
with-
had to be written against something, and it was written against the historical reserve to pay for the yacht club. We said to the membership that the money, that their dues were not going to go up to pay for the new yacht club because the 130 was already baked into their dues, and that money would be used to pay out the amount of the yacht club. That has not happened yet. So it's as simple, it's just like somebody buying a car and promising to pay themselves back for money they put aside. It's the same philosophy. There is no bill anywhere. There's no loan. As I said to Pat earlier today, it would have been easier if we just gone and borrowed the money from a bank. Then we would have had the debt on the books that we could point to and say it hasn't
Actually,
been paid
Tom,
off.
I got to disagree with that one point. It would have been easier to take the money out of the reserves and pay for the daggone construction of the project, by draws, however way you want to do it. Now, we are responsible as future boards to replace that capital that we have used to build that building.
Thank you.
I agree
what
with
we're
that.
doing.
But what has happened is we have created a negative value in a reserve fund, and that makes no sense to me.
Well, that's been done. It's there. It's on paper. I've been through this for the whole time. There is a 5-year plan. It's a collection plan. I mean, the thing of it
course it
is
is.
that it's just a collection
Of course
plan.
it is.
It's a way of collecting it. And we separated it or tried to separate it out because we said, well, we've got all these major things. I don't want to go back there. Okay, what I'm suggesting is, there are several points that I have to bring out. I'm going to go down them in order that I had. Right now, as I read this, Mark may correct me, but hold on. We have a if you take deficit and the historical reserve, add them together, and it shows this right in Art's budget sheet. We have $3,157,594 in capital assets replacement, and that's just the total of the historic and the other. Capital assets replacement is exactly the terminology used in FO3, which approves our reserves. The resolution that states our reserves. Okay, but starting with that, if you go down to, as I read it, if you look at the capital assets in the main budget book, you have something called police station, $500,000. The money that comes over this year to fund we'll call it the historic reserve, but really the capital asset replacement reserve, is $1,549,032.
Where are you, Dave, on your chart?
Coming down to, look at contributions from assessment.
FY16 contributions from assessment. Thank you.
Exactly. So what that shows, Sharon, is that's the money, and this is taken right off our sheet. That's the income or input into the reserve. Now that money includes $500,000 for a police station.
No, it does not.
That's
No, the balance
No, it
includes
does
that.
not.
The starting balance, that money was put in last year. The 3,157,594 has the 5.
okay,
Isn't
so,
it replacement reserves?
That was not in the contribution. It was-
Correct.
It was
It's not
supposed
for
to
this
be a
year.
capital item, which has not been spent. So
Plan B moves that 500,000 over under historical reserves as replacement reserve, and therefore we don't collect the 500,000. We've already, if we intend to spend the money, we vote to spend it. We don't vote to spend it, we don't. It's not put in the budget for any raising of assessment for this year. If we left it where it was, it would have. Plan B moves it over under historical and parks it there.
okay.
You may or may not do it. It does not affect the assessment. Is that a correct
I
statement?
tried to track that, and if it's correct, I'll accept it.
Yeah, I mean,
It is
But-
correct, but one thing that we say, I don't know who's starting, that capital spending doesn't affect assessments.
well, of course it does eventually. Of course
Yes,
it does.
it does.
With the
As a
course
matter
it
of fact,
does.
it could affect this year's assessment if we took that 500,000 to spend it toward something we were funding in this year's assessment. Well,
but not for the
Not for the
500,000.
assessment.
It's going
Sure,
to
it could.
affect the percentage of the replacement reserve.
let's say you're collecting reserves this year of $1.5 million. Just as an example, take the 500,000 you're not going to spend on a police station, credit it toward the 500. You just saved membership $60.
Well,
no,
No, you didn't.
Correct.
No,
Sure,
you
you're
didn't.
not have to
No, you
collect.
didn't.
You're not collecting $1.5 million anymore. You're collecting $1 million. You
you
already
still
have.
collect $1.5 million as depreciation for assets that are already on books, ones that we intend to purchase this year, and ones that we intend to purchase next.
We're
That's
actually,
got nothing to do with.
we're actually collecting way more than $1.5 million. Collecting almost $4
Well,
million. I'm
well,
saying
yeah,
you can
Marty,
use that
try-
500
let's stick
and
to
spend
the
it any
thread.
way you like. You could write checks to the membership.
Bottom line is,
Marty,
Yes,
can
you
we
could.
can we just stick to the thread?
Well, I
You're
don't,
you're telling me that the 3157 includes that was funded last year to
Yes.
$500,000, and it was included in that. So it's true to say that 500,000 was put into that reserve because of the police station.
There, it was just put in the intended capital expenditures. We didn't collect it. We didn't.
It didn't come out of assessments.
No.
no.
It's in replacement reserves.
replacement reserves are paid for with assessment sharing. When did the 500 go into
We
assessment?
never
go
collected
into
because
it.
we
They
didn't
never
build it.
collected it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It wasn't in the. It's like the roads thing. The roads were depreciated, but it wasn't put into the. Your 500,000 parking it under what Plan B does exactly what you're trying to do, Dave. It does exactly the same thing. It puts it under historical reserve, and it does not raise the assessment. The only time it's going to raise the assessment is if we actually spend money. Then it's only on depreciation of the building.
Depreciation of
Once it's built. It
Wow.
does not affect the due.
You know, I looked at that. I don't want to pull out that budget things on track, but I looked at both ends of it, the money going in and the money coming out. And it appeared to me that 500,000 out as well as so. At any rate, I'll accept that what Art says and pass over that. The other thing that's come up as a point, and I am to agree with it, is that there is no reason. I mean, if in fact we can't distinguish between major 5-year reserve and the historical reserve, there's no reason not needed to merge those together. Look at it as capital assets replacement. We also have a future projects reserve.
I need clarification why you said there's no reason to merge. Why we should.
No reason why we should.
I think there is, but I'd like to hear why you say no.
Okay. Why I'd say not?
Yeah.
Because we've already agreed that the 5-year plan has been ended. The money that was put into the 5-year plan, or the deficit, came out of the historical reserves. So what you have is one pot, $5 million, and another pot, negative $2 million. They're both combined together in the third column of total of 2. If you look at FO3, which is our resolution governing how we do this. Now, by the way, I was there when it changed, so it basically says nothing about a 5-year plan reserve or a historical reserve. It talks about a replacement reserve.
Capital asset replacement.
Where I think we're trying to move towards, and I think in a way we all agree on this, is that's what we want.
Once the yacht club once the numbers and the dollars
Okay.
are collected from the $130 per year from that collection approach, whatever you want to call it, once that reaches the level of the yacht club, I think there is general agreement. At that point, the CIP is going to establish how much money we need going forward.
Well,
We all agreed with that.
yeah, if there is no difference.
Well, there's a huge difference
I
because
think
this
there
write-up
is.
says you're going to eliminate the $130.
That's
Yeah.
telling me it's wrong.
That's what it says. Your write-up says you're going to remove the $130.
I know what my write-up
Okay.
said. You know what? I don't stop thinking. and it's, I believe that, in fact, we have an opportunity right now to change this back to what FO3 says. And it makes no difference whatsoever. I mean, keeping an artificial negative, when in fact it's money we borrowed from the big positive. If you put it back right now, I mean, you'll have a number. And you have to decide whether that number is large enough or not large enough. It doesn't. Sooner or later, we're going to do that. Do we have to wait until next year? I don't think so.
Well, we're paying $50,000 for a reserve study to determine how much reserves we need. And by removing my issue, Dave, is the removal of the $130. You are basically washing that commitment to the membership of how the yacht club was going to be paid for. You're
And future
washing it
budgets.
through the historical reserves, which is depreciations of trucks and printers and things like that, is where that money came from. So the commitment to this membership was that the yacht club would be paid for via the $130 coming in. And if you get rid of the $130, wherever you put the money, if you get rid of it, you have just wiped out the commitment that was made of how the yacht club would be taken care of. And you have now washed it through the money that was available by depreciating other things. That's the effect of what. Let me ask the guys who run the books. Is that not correct, what I just said?
If that's what they said, when it was a funding source, the 130 was originally meant to go into future.
Well, read the rest of the sentence, actually. Was the funding source for?
Your write-up still says you're getting rid of the 130.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Dave, so you're saying you want to get rid of the 130 in this year's budget. We're not going to collect the 130.
We're funding.
I think that's an oversimplification of what I'm saying. I mean, and it don't know.
Trying to be simple. I want to understand what you're saying.
I think he's getting rid of the column.
Tom, I think we said to
Right
redistribute,
now,
not to-
right now,
We said redistribute.
We
We
said
didn't say get rid of it.
He's saying get rid of it. He said right now you're right. He just said that.
no, I'm talking about Art's correct. I'm saying, look, let's get rid of the column. Get rid of the concept that there's a difference between paying back the yacht club and the amount collected in the historical reserve. Look, when you combine the two, at the total amount that you have in those reserves, and determine whether or not that's adequate. If it's over adequate, then in fact use it against that, which we're already doing. Use it in Plan B. We're already using some of that
So
to some of it. The question is, what's a reasonable amount to do that? What's a reasonable amount to have in those funds?
In this, I'm sorry, Dave, but you and I are obviously coming down on the opposite sides of each other on this one. We've already budgeted in a change to this budget a $50,000 reserves. If we're going to spend $50,000 to study what level of reserves we ought to have, we shouldn't be sitting here just arbitrarily deciding how much money we need. The reality is we have a process, a commitment to our membership of where this $130 was going to go, what it was going to be used for. And if you want to change what we're doing and get rid of the column, quite frankly, I don't care. As long as we're collecting the $130 to do what we said to the membership we would do, I'm fine with that. You want to get rid of the column? I don't care. But don't wash the debt of the yacht club through the depreciation of other assets.
Well, you
Because that's what's going to happen. That's what this is doing.
But Tom, you cannot have it both ways, my friend. You know, you created a negative number in one of these categories in order to utilize funds that were in the historic reserve to pay for a building.
And we
Okay?
haven't collected
What
that money
this
yet.
action is doing is it's eliminating
No,
those negative balances.
It's washing it through money that's already been depreciated.
That is true.
That is true. And it was the depreciation of other assets.
But you cannot have it both ways, my friend.
I'm not asking for it both ways. I'm saying we committed to our membership
Yeah,
that
go
they're...
ahead. You're next, Bob. Bob wants to.
Go ahead, Bob.
Just as an FYI, if you look at FO3, which I've looked at, where it calls for the capital asset replacement, it's clear on our reserve funding, top line says capital asset replacement. The 5-year funding strategy that was put in place before, I was dealing with it, basically all it does is carve out. It provides transparency for major capital items that the association's paying. When you look to say, well, we're going to merge them to get the bottom line is the third column. It's very clear. The only reason it's there is for transparency. So by merging them, we're just eliminating that level of transparency. Not that I don't know that it matters one way or the other, but that was the purpose in the capital asset replacement.
To me, Bob, there is nothing more transparent than having a capital
asset replacement.
Historic $55,219,000. Nothing more transparent to me than starting with that figure, paying off the negative numbers that we have spent. We've spent that money. That money's gone. The most transparent thing you can do is come down and express that we have $3,310,000 in our reserves. That's extremely transparent to me. That indicates that we have spent this money.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. The exact opposite is the case. If you start washing through the debt of the yacht club through the depreciation of other assets because you put it all together and get rid of the $130, which is key, if you get rid of the $130, you have in fact killed the transparency of how the yacht club was going to be paid for. You have now used the depreciation of other assets to pay it off.
That's what you did to build it. That's exactly what you did to build it. You used those historic funds.
Yes, we did.
Correct.
That's
with
correct.
the
In order to
promise,
build, and you created some sort
with
of
the promise that we would pay it. We pay. As Marty says, is there a loan? No. Is there a debt on the books? No. But like my analogy earlier, folks, I had money in the bank, I bought a car, and I said I was going to pay myself back. That's exactly what's going on here.
Yeah.
And if we get rid of the 130, we are violating what we said we
But
would.
We paid
Tom,
Well,
your
we haven't paid
your savings account is $14,000, $15,000, $16,000 later, correct? And it is going to increase however amount
Not
of
if you
money
get
you're
rid
going
of
to put into that
130 or
savings
not.
account to offset the expenditure for that automobile. It may take you 5 years.
Not if you don't put the 130 away, Jack. Not if you stop doing it, which is what this said.
Is there anybody in around this table who thinks there aren't going to be future projects we're going to need to fund?
You know, there will be future
And
projects.
why would we stop the 130?
Because we don't have a future project that's been approved. Why would you take the money out of
We
your
don't have it approved today, but we might have something approved in 6 months from now.
We might. Well, then
But
we
we all
might be
know-
able to have
but we
another
all
ship.
know-
Should that, Mr. Chairman, should that be something we should vote on?
It's a chicken or the
The
egg.
130? Is that what you're saying? Vote on
Yeah.
that?
Just
yeah.
take it-
Well-
we're moving along.
You know, if somebody can form the question, I'd put it to a vote. But forming the question, it's not a matter of eliminating the
Well,
130.
let me-
Right now, the 130 has already been partially eliminated because we're paying operations.
Only
Now,
partially.
there is no reason that we can't pay out of operations the rest of it. I mean, I'm not saying we should. I'm saying
No, you
that
can't.
if you do it for now, the reason Tom will give you is that we promised the membership that somehow or another we were going to collect this money separately in the 5-year plan and so forth. And he's saying we took the money out of the historic reserves, and now we're left with what? After all said and done, we haven't paid them back. We're left with $5 million in the historical reserves. I mean, they just keep going up. I was trying to find my
But
own
5 million
spreadsheet.
is not just the
3,201 is the number.
No. He's talking about the top line, Bob.
Oh, the top.
Yeah, he's talking about the top line in the reserves. The 5,219,000. That's what he's saying. And that number, see, Bob, that number gets funded each and every year. That number gets funded out of assessments each and every year.
The
It gets funded.
average-
So it goes up, but it's not a true reflection of where we
The
are.
average take out of it is what? Or 1.7 or something like that? I mean, that's the issue, Tom. I mean, the truth is, we're all looking at the 5-year plan and say, oh, yeah, we're collecting that. But meantime, if you look at the combined, it's going up. And the question is, out of the combined, the two things combined, I mean, have we over-collected? Do we know what we're going to do with it? And the answer is, I think no.
Bottom line is, we're just got through. Well, then I want to remove the 50,000. I'm going to be snarky here. Then remove the
Snarky.
50,000 to do the reserve
already,
study. What's the
we've
point?
already agreed to take 175 out of the, and that's 50 is in the 175. We've already agreed on it.
No, it's not.
I thought.
Sure it is.
I
Well,
thought
that
the-
50's in
I
there.
thought the
You're right,
intent-
you're right.
And let me ask you something. I thought the intent, when the board preliminarily said we're going to accept it like this, to where I think you were a week or so ago, the 50 grand was to do a reserve study to figure out what the final reserve should look like.
Right.
And in doing so, we were not going to change this until we had that
That information. That's right. That's
this
what I-
year, and then next year found it was reasonable buying it to do whatever. That's when we would do it after we have that information. Now we're back to no. Let's just eliminate it now.
Then why
I'm
do
a
we
little
need a reserve
confused.
study?
Well, he wants to eliminate it.
Who wants to limit the
No, I
reserve? No.
That's it. He's right up.
Are we talking about the 130 or the 50,000?
Oh,
Oh, the 130.
I am
Yeah,
not
the one word.
talking.
I want to eliminate it. I'll be the first
He
one to
does
stand
want
up
to,
and
Marty
say
does
that.
want to eliminate it.
You know,
And-
and I'd like to make a comment. When we talk about funding projects that aren't even projects, it goes back hypothetical, raising money for hypothetical projects. The last time we went down this road, guys, and I got to remind you why I ran to be reelected to the board, was finding out at BJ's at the bar that we made a $1.4 million cash offer to buy another golf course.
Marty.
I'm sorry, you
I
put the
know.
money in the bank, and somebody at this
I
table
know.
will figure out a
I
way
know.
to spend
I
it.
don't care. This.
Well, obviously you don't.
We're talking about this budget right now.
When it comes to this
You know,
budget,
we
I'm
will
going to.
all- I think maybe we'll concede. I certainly will concede that the money that we collect has not necessarily been for what it was originally intended,
Good.
and not even close to it, as a matter of fact. But that's done. I
It
also
is
know
what it
that I
is.
can use my eyes to look to see that we have a historical reserve, bloated historical reserve, of $5 million.
We don't know it's
At
bloated.
the same
How do we know it's bloated?
You don't know
Because
that.
because
Yeah,
it
but then
doesn't,
we replace the
Sharon,
reserve
it
study.
doesn't
You don't-
exist. It
Sharon,
doesn't.
Sharon,
You have to.
wait,
You
Sharon.
have to net.
Let me answer.
I'm sorry.
Because if you look
I
at
get
that
so
total,
excited
and then
about
you look at the amount of money that used to replace small assets, Remember, small assets,
Computer, the desk, the chair, I know, everything. Yeah.
1.7 million, something like that a year. We got 5 now. We're taking out 1.7. We're putting in 1.7 or more a year. It's going up. Now, there's no reason. We did borrow the money one time. Yes, we did. There is no reason not to pay it back. I mean, there's no reason not to just simply merge them and say, hey, that's gone. And
Are you still saying get rid of 130? That's what I want you to clarify for a minute.
Well, I believe once you said you do what I see, Jason, whatever. I think then you have to ask the question, and I think this is a major question. What do we want to do about next year's assessments? Go around the table if we can. I'll vote 0. I mean, that's what I'm not voting. I'm just saying.
Okay,
that
that's great.
That would be my
Straw
target.
Can't do anything about that.
Joe, be quiet.
Are you talking about what our budget now? You're saying you
I'm
want a
saying,
zero
I'm saying,
balance.
look, the bottom line of what we can make these numbers be. Can't believe I'm saying this in public, but it's true that we can make a zero assessment, and by simply changing the amounts of the contributions to the reserves, reducing some.
We're cutting costs.
Well, you
Which
can
we've
do it.
done.
We've already done that.
We already did that.
That's past history. So you understand what I'm saying, Sharon?
Nope.
Okay.
All right, Greg, I'm going to make a motion.
You?
Yeah.
I'm going to make a motion that Plan B, which has been on the table for a good 10 days for everybody, the only thing that wasn't set yet was the loss in golf. I'm going to make a motion that Plan B, as proposed and presented by Pat and myself to this board, be adopted as the numbers to be used to finish the final budget for next year with the addition of a $100,000 loss for golf. That's my motion.
And what is the assessment impact of Plan B?
$6, except for the $100,000 for golf.
Well, it's 50. You've already got it.
So you got
It'll be another $6.
Another
Another
$6.
$6.
Okay, it's $12.
$5.91.
$12, as I understand it. It's $12.
correct.
$12.
All right. Do I have a second for that motion?
I second.
Discussion. Yeah, it's not needed. We don't need to increase assessments to our folks. It's not necessary.
So how are you?
One of the
gonna do all
things
these
that you can do is you can instead take $6 out of the $130 that you're allocating toward, and keep the assessments at 0. You can do it that way.
Okay, let me respond to that thing.
Okay.
The elephant in the room here, folks, and I know everybody's going to go, there he goes with the fire department. But I'm sorry, the fire department budget alone
Had nothing to do
was
with
going to, has everything to do with it. It was going to raise our dues $24. We've got it down to 12. I mean, folks, how many times are we going to, I mean,
Now, wait a second.
how many times are we going to regenerate all this?
Tom, the issues that we discussed were operational issues, and I feel satisfied, not 100% satisfied, in fact, less than 100%, that we did the best we could
Correct.
in the operations. I think some of us felt we should have tightened it down more.
Yes.
Okay, but we got there. Okay, so that's it.
Yes, we did.
All right. The real issue is not that the fire department wanted more money this year or anything.
No, I was
like
just
that.
referring to
That's-
Jack's comment that the
that's
dues don't
operation.
have to go
That's
up and
They
up.
don't, Tom. They don't. It's not necessary.
Tom, the issue is reserves. I mean, the issue
Amen.
is reserve contribution. That's where we
Then-
are. That's
Then
where-
don't bother to do the reserve study at all.
Well,
If you're going to make the decision right now that you already know
Yeah.
what our reserves are.
well, you know what, Tom? Let me respond to that.
I have a motion on the table and it's been seconded.
Yeah, we're
And
discussing.
we're in discussion.
In discussion.
I'm waiting.
We're in discussion. Let me respond. Say, because you said it once. Okay. If we haven't got the reserve study yet, and you're reluctant to cut that, I mean, how do we know the amount of money that we have in the reserves now is not too much?
Right.
You're saying you don't know that it's not too much. I'm saying you don't know that it's correct.
Or it's
We
too little.
don't know. But I do know how much we take out and spend out of that fund. on small assets. I know that we don't have any major assets on the table now, even though I know that they're going to come. There's definitely going to. You know, I'm looking for something that's in between. That, you know, we keep the reserves, keep a certain amount there, don't drastically cut. So, you know, I'm willing to concede. I know not everybody is, but part of that 130. But okay, I think all we're doing on this, your motion, address that, is just pushing the can. We have an opportunity right now to do something, and I think we're not doing it, and we're not taking with that motion. Now, is it going to kill us? No, it's not going to kill us, and we are going to have to revisit it next year, and maybe we'll be a little smarter and we'll be a little better.
Right.
But
That's
I
exactly
have
what
more
Dr. Ray
information.
said.
but I can't vote for it right now. Marty.
This budget shows a balance at the end of 2016 as an estimate, budgeted estimate of $4,477,231. And we can slice through all the cake and pie and take out bulkheads and narrow it down. But I haven't done any homework other than on that number. And that number, guys, is 50% higher than the last 10-year average. It is the second highest reserve amount ever. I think we can afford to cut it a couple $100,000 and nothing's going to happen.
Bill.
I was told as a resident that $130 was going to be kept in a fund, was going to pay the yacht club, and then it was going to go to the next thing. All we need is a lightning strike on the country club, and where are we getting that money? All we need is
Insurance.
Okay, insurance.
Well, I don't know. The fact is, what we have $36 million in depreciable assets, and $3 million if they all go bad.
Oh, come.
I mean, is it?
11 million, that's roads.
Well, yeah, I know I've been told. I was at those meetings, and I heard what was
I've
said.
never seen it in writing.
And
Ever.
Well, you know, there was a. Sometimes you get unwritten assumptions, you know. For
Gee,
things
that's
that-
exactly right.
Okay. Any further discussion?
So we have a motion on the floor
We have a motion. We have a second.
and a second to accept Plan B and increase the golf losses to total.
Correct. That's correct.
Leave the replacement reserve in.
That's correct. Michelle, you have that pretty well, I think. Or Bob's.
I'm just scratching. Don't pay
Okay.
attention.
All right. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. 4-3, the motion carries.
Son of
Is there any?
golly.
Is there any further information about? Is there any further?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Jack, Dave, you and Jack and I need to talk about this
Yes, we
golf
do.
thing
Yeah,
before
yeah.
you guys leave.
Yeah.
Can you stay a little longer?
Yeah, I can stay.